The Calling Out the Shots podcast is dedicated to compassionately looking for the truth in a world full of division and lies. Humanity has not been allowed to speak freely for so long, and so in efforts to begin the conversation, I, Dr. Ishwaran Kahilithas, will be speaking to the many who have been impacted over the last few years in order to bring back the art of listening so we can all begin to hear as one. Today's guest is Sai, the ex-director of end-of-life care at one of the largest hospital trusts in the UK and the author of a Twitter thread exposing the truth behind the COVID-19 pandemic. The tweets have now gotten over 500,000 views and was also later picked up by the inventor of mRNA technology, Dr. Robert Malone. I enjoyed speaking with Sai. We touched upon his experience working for the NHS, as well as the need for humanity to experience a spiritual revolution for an evolution to take place. You can find him on Twitter at the original Sai.
All good.
So thank you very much for coming on, Sai. Really grateful to actually speak to you on the podcast. I first got to know you on Twitter, January, so last month, and you did a massive thread exposing a lot of things, the NHS and possibly the kind of NHS and possibly the government and things like that. It was a long thread, and it finally got picked up by Dr. Malone, who made an article on it, and that's how I actually got to know about the thread, because he linked it. So then I went down the thread and I was reading. I was like, it's exactly what I was going through during my time during the pandemic, and I just connected with you since then, and it's been a great kind of relationship. You are or were the ex-director of end-of-life care at one of the largest kind of hospitals in the UK. Can you tell a bit more about yourself and what's been going on since around 2015, 16, and what's kind of led you to this now?
Yeah, so thanks for having me on, Doc. Always a pleasure to speak to you, and thanks for your time. So Director of End-of-Life Care from 2016 to 2019, working in bereavement services primarily, which is one of the services I managed. Changed a lot of policies, did a lot of good work at that hospital, worked with mortality, worked with causes of death, worked with doctors, worked with medical directors during that time, clinical leads consultants, learned a lot in terms of annual death rates, what are the common types of death that we see. And in 2019, I then made a move into operational management. Did that for about a year and a half, in which the pandemic struck, and then took an opportunity to then quit my permanent job. At the same time, I was setting up a business at the time, and it all coincided with me wanting to go and explore what was going on during the pandemic and to see what was going on firsthand. So I just went and gave my CV into a hospital down in South London. They called me up and said, would you like an opportunity to manage A&E and AMU? And so I took that up, and that is primarily the main experience which gave me the reason to walk away from the NHS, Doc.
What was your day-to-day like? Because not many people know what actually the way the NHS really works. So what was your role as a director?
You're talking about end-of-life care?
End-of-life care, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so essentially I manage bereavement services. I have a team of people. I have bereavement officers under me, and I had my own assistant as well. And what we would do is we get notified by the mortuary every day as to who has died in the hospital. So when we come in on a Monday, we're then covering all the deaths from essentially when we've left on Friday all the way up to Monday morning. And we get notified. We can get notified during the day as well. And what we have to do is then speak to the relevant ward, get the notes down, the patient notes. That immediately comes down to us. We have jurisdiction over that. We then scrutinize the notes, look at all entries from the medical teams, can be nurse's note, but primarily we're reading the treating doctor's notes. So ranging from F1 to consultant. We will then develop a picture of what happened in terms of admission of the patient all the way till the confirmation of the death. And I might as well talk about verification of death. Many people don't know about how that's done, but essentially doctors will come, they get called after a patient has died if there's no signs of life, a doctor will get bleeped, and it doesn't mean that the death is confirmed straight away. So, for example, if a patient dies today at, let's say, 3 o'clock, a doctor could still turn up at 9 o'clock, verify the death, and it's when they do the certain medical test that the time of death is taken. So, pupils fixed and dilated, no signs of breathing. They're obviously looking for a pulse, so no heart rate, and there is one other thing that they do as well. But essentially, they all write it down, and they write the time that they've done it, and that is the time of death. We take that as the date. So even if if a guy dies at 11 o'clock and it gets verified at 1 o'clock the next day, we take the next day as the date of death. And there's been mistakes that happen where, doctors have forgotten to verify and stuff. That happens.
Mhm.
But yeah, you just deal with it. But yeah, the main thing that we kind of look after is determining the cause of death. And so there's a whole list of criteria where a patient will need to get reported to the coroner. So we will enforce that. But the majority of the time, yeah, the death is expected and natural, and hence a cause of death can be determined.
And so I remember doing this. The nurse would call me. They will say a patient has died. I mean, usually a patient that we expected to die. You can write. Then you would have to confirm it. You would usually put things down if you didn't have anything very kind of urgent to do, and go and do it as soon as possible, because you want that time to be as close. Unfortunately, if you get bleeped, if there's something else going on, something more kind of urgent, then there is a time delay. And then afterwards, a day or so after, I would get called, or the doctor looking after the patient would get called, because your name's on the notes, and then we'll have to go through the kind of cause of death. So you go through the notes, and you kind of know the history of the patient. You speak to your reg or your consultant to make sure it's correct, because it's a death certificate at the end of the day. And there's parts to it, because obviously there's usually not one cause. There's usually one causing. There's usually kind of multiple causes with one main cause, and a few other smaller causes that might have made that worse. For example, someone might have had heart failure, and then their lungs might have kind of filled up with liquid, and then they might have had pneumonia, and then it's the pneumonia that might have killed them. So then you have to write all of them in that order. But it was very kind of stringent. People in the briefing office were very friendly, but it was very stringent, because you have to be respectful, because the patient is still your responsibility, even though they're not actually kind of alive at the moment, but they're still your responsibility. And it's a legal proceeding, and your name is your name on that patient. But during the pandemic, I felt like something had changed, and I wasn't being asked to see people. So usually I was a junior doctor, so I was a GP reg, but I was still junior. Anyone is junior who's not a consultant.
You were GP ST1?
ST2 when I left. So kind of 1 year away from being a GP. But even GPs would go around the neighborhood and do it themselves. So they still had, actually community-wise, they had more power over what was said in the death certificates. But yeah, before the pandemic, I was asked in the wards to go down, do the forms, because I knew the patients. But during the pandemic, I felt there was less of that going on. It was more restricted, and I didn't really think a lot. Actually, that was it was more either the consultant doing it or the medical examiner, I think. But because I wasn't in that scene and I wasn't really asked, I actually didn't go into the office during the pandemic, which was extremely weird for me. Even for other deaths, I didn't really, I wasn't really asked. So you speak about the medical examiner. Could you explain what all this is and what kind of changed?
So pre-pandemic, the way the system works is that, as you mentioned, the treating doctor looks after a patient, and there can be a wide range of doctors that do that. But essentially, one doctor will come down from that team and have a responsibility to do the. So a lot of people refer to it as a death certificate, but actually, a death certificate is what you get from the registrar's office, which is an official document. The hospital is all concerned about doing the MCCD, which is a medical cause of certificate of death. Medical certificate of cause of death. That's an MCCD. So that's what the doctors do. and one person from the team will be allocated that kind of job, right? As you do, and they come down, and it was the treating doctor's responsibility to do that paperwork. It's part of your job and your role as a doctor to do that. And what was proposed in 2016 was a change to the system, so that responsibility will be taken away from the treating doctor and given to one senior doctor who's put in by the hospital or the government in a paid role, and that role would be known as the medical examiner. Now, this one person could have overall responsibility for doing it, or they could bring in their own team of doctors to work as medical examiners as well and help out as a team. So it's either sole responsibility or it's a number of people that do it, depending on the size of the hospital and how many patients they see, etc. Right? And the way this affects things is that before, bereavement services was the sole kind of body that was regulating all the deaths in the hospital. We would have that power in terms of telling doctors what to do, advising them what to do, and we would kind of sit in the fence because we want to look after our doctors and make sure that they don't get into trouble, legal trouble down the line for doing something wrong. Plus, we want to be there for the safety of the patients and the families and the bereaved relatives. So we will look to do the best for the patient, but at the same time, we'll look to advise doctors to do the right thing. And so the ME system and the medical examiner system would change that because we would be removed. We were half medical and half administrative, but following the implementation of the medical examiner system, which they proposed in 2016, they wanted to essentially make anyone involved with bereavement services and patient affairs purely administrative. So just seeing families and organizing paperwork. If there's a need to fax stuff, yeah, we fax that. Whereas before, we're looking at clinical notes, we're advising, we've got a sufficient amount of medical knowledge and able to advise people. And, it was more about, our opinion was respected. And this proposal was essentially taking everything away. Now, I listened to all of this in 2016, and I went away to manage my own bereavement services and developed a very close relationship with one of the medical directors in the hospital who would always come down to our office. And we really worked well together. And then in 2019, towards the end, medical director came down to my office and told me that the board and the hospital had been making a decision about potentially moving to the ME system. And so, when I pressed the medical director for more information, it turned out that it was everything that I'd heard before in 2016. So in my head, I kind of felt that, I was coming to an end of my career in end of life care, and I wanted to learn more, and I wanted to see what the NHS had for me, had in store for me in terms of a role elsewhere. So I sidetracked and I moved into operational management.
That makes sense. Reflecting on my life and my working life, before the bereavement kind of office did have more of a clinical role. They would help you, and you could call one of the doctors there as well. But when the medical examiner, there was a switch. I don't remember what year, but they began looking at the notes themselves, these doctors, and then if they had an issue, they would call you. And it was said that they were in place for another extra barrier for protection for the patients, I guess, or another doctor looking over the notes. But in a lot of the cases, I felt there was a lot more friction because the doctor who was looking after really knew the patient, but then this kind of medical examiner was examining and kind of questioning what's going on and not really understanding the case. And I guess in some cases it might be positive, really looking at the patient from an external perspective. But I don't know, I felt it became more of a became more disconnected from the patient in that sense. Did the introduction of this new service change the way things were done and affect how the pandemic kind of played out?
Well, when I left and the pandemic hit, I had no idea as to what was going on in end of life care because I had left and I was not involved in the system, but I still had connections with my old colleagues in the hospitals. And since I wrote the thread recently, I've reconnected with my mentor, and it happens to be that my mentor actually worked during the pandemic in end of life care and managed bereavement services essentially. And what happened in 2019, she was asked to essentially step aside from what she was doing, and she was told that she was going to be given a new role, and that the medical examiner was coming in, and essentially she was ostracized and kind of kept away from the whole process during the pandemic. And it's still the case now that they haven't switched back, I believe. So she's currently studying for a master's, and they tried to enforce her taking the vaccine, pretty much like trying to, keep her secluded. She didn't have absolutely no idea what was going on the medical certificates once that kicked in, because previously she would have oversight on everything. Nothing would leave the department without her, without a go ahead. So that's a very, very big change right there. Sudden change, and you've got to question, why was that implemented, and why is it that, like, during the pandemic she could not scrutinize anything? I certainly would have done the same had I been in my position during the time. There's no way I would have accepted some of the causes of death that I've seen prior to leaving. And I've also spoken to a couple of doctors, and what I understand is that, for example, with my mentor, the system was fixed. It didn't change. Once the ME system came in, it stayed. But I know that, for example, at my hospital where I worked in A&E and AMU, I know for a fact that the system was switched when and as needed. And so, for example, my ex-girlfriend, F1, 1 week she had to go down and do a certificate for a patient during the pandemic. And then the next week she was told that she was not required. The medical examiner would be doing it. And then a couple of weeks later, she would be asked to go down and do a certificate. So they were switching back and forth.
That's something I thought was going on. Again, because I wasn't there, didn't see the paperwork, wasn't in the office, I can't comment exactly what happened. But what I can say was that I was doing a lot less of the paperwork, and I also thought and kind of speculated that we were putting, if someone had COVID-19, we weren't really examining them with looking at the actual cause of death, and even if they had a false positive, they would be put down as COVID-19 death, even if something else has caused it. Is this something that you've heard from your friends or colleagues, or you've seen?
Yeah, for sure, because they would know what their patient dies of, isn't it? And then when they're given a call by the medical examiner who questions them and tells them, well, this is the cause of death, even if they disagreed, it was the case that it wasn't being changed. So we know that was a fact for sure.
Do you think this kind of change in mindset was more centralized, or do you think doctors in general in healthcare at that point, when it was COVID, they just naturally gave up all other diseases and said, okay, if my patient has COVID, this must be the end cause? Was there a culture being formed where that was the case?
Well, it was being regulated by the MEs, isn't it? So the ME system was something that was planned and introduced from a long time ago. Previously, I thought that this was first spoken about in 2016, but having spoken to my mentor since, we know for a fact that there was a doctor in 2014 that was heavily involved in pushing for this. And so there would be meetings where people from all around the country would meet, and the ME system was being discussed as early as 2014. I've also heard that possibly it may have been thought about even earlier than that, but we know that for sure. And I did tweet about the person who was named chief examiner, and he's the guy that my mentor actually named as well in that discussion. So that's easily findable if people want to find that. The guy that set it up, 100%, we know his name now.
Because what we have to understand is we change policy, especially in healthcare, it sounds kind of cynical, but it's usually not to do with actual patient care. It's
Yeah.
usually to save money or something else, or to make money, or there's
Yeah.
another agenda. Because if policies were actually changed to improve patient care, we wouldn't be using the system that we're using
100%.
now.
Oh, 100%. 100%. We'd be doing a lot more different things in hospitals,
Right.
right? It would be a completely different place.
So it does make me think. I mean, they use patient care as a guise sometimes. We're doing this to help patient care, or we're doing this to help the overall system and how doctors and nurses work. But actually, as we're seeing now, there's more burnout, there's more people dying. So whatever's introduced didn't help objectively.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So what else did
We
you?
know that because, for example, with the treatment of cancer, we know that, for example, PET scans use a sugar dye to see how far the cancer is spread around the body. We look for metastases, right, with sugar dye, and so if you use your common sense, you would know that cancer cells are uptaking those sugars, right, in order to be seen on the PET scan. So why is it that the NHS doesn't advise people to cut out sugar from their diet? Why is that the case?
Oh yeah, we can go down that route. Yeah, I mean the
Yeah.
diet, the actual diet given to
So
patients.
do they actually care about patient safety, or is it all about money, like you say? That's we can talk about that and go into that, like you say, and it's a huge hole. But yeah, no, 100% not. They don't. It's all about money and making money,
Well, yeah, I
from my
mean,
experience.
because I mean, good care is a bad business model in the current way the world is run. If you're
Yeah,
healthy, you're not
yeah,
profitable, right?
yeah, exactly.
So you kind of, in a way, want people to be unwell if you're
Yeah,
working in
100%,
healthcare, right?
100%.
Especially if you're
You make more
getting
money, right? You make more
exactly.
money.
Exactly. So it's run on that, and then you have to kind of question why new policies are made, and there could have been a very good reason why, but
Yeah,
objectively now looking at it, I can't really see it. Maybe I'm
yeah,
being blind to it, but especially when we're using false positives and not actually diagnosing patients with the actual condition they died from, not with,
mm,
then it
yeah.
kind of makes me question what's been going on. Have you had any contact with any colleagues now in healthcare, and what have they said? What's the change now?
Yeah, I'm always
For
in touch with doctors. A lot of them are my good friends, and it's interesting to hear their perspective because, for example, one of my friends is a really good close friend of mine from university, and she's a cardiac surgeon. And so, hearing about, I've spoken to you about your experience during the initial period of COVID and when it hit, and hearing her like side of the story. She was like, people died. It was crazy. We didn't know what we're doing. But yeah, that's expected. COVID, we know, was something that was artificially created in Wuhan. It's not something that doesn't exist, like many people seem to think. It did exist. But the key point to make is that it didn't kill as many people as the media said that it did. And that's the key thing. It did kill people. It killed very few numbers of people in comparison to other diseases. So the people that sit there and say it wasn't something, it was something. It did exist. People did see it on X-rays, etc. And it was very different from a normal picture of pneumonia and the way it presented on X-rays, etc. But the key thing to say is that a lot of people did not die. The numbers and what was made of COVID-19 was 100% inaccurate and false, 100%. So
yeah,
yeah, I think that picture is definitely related amongst a lot of colleagues in the medical field. But then I think that's where they stop thinking about it. They seem to believe all the figures and everything that was reported in the media, whereas if you start to look into it, you will 100% figure out that it's inaccurate and false.
I mean, definitely. I mean, I was lucky enough to work on the actual front lines, diagnosing whether you have COVID-19 or not. I was
Exactly.
literally, real life evidence seeing, and I would at that time using my previous account would actually tweet. I saw 100 patients today. Three of them were COVID-19. 15 of them were heart failure. 16 of them were kind of asthma. But they all came in because they had a fever or respiratory problems. But on examination, and on testing, on X-ray, on blood, the majority of them did not have COVID-19.
Yeah,
It does
100%.
mean, and the majority of them actually might have had a different respiratory illness or illness that mimicked COVID-19, been admitted to hospital, and then maybe have had COVID-19 in hospital as well.
Yeah.
So then we don't know. But because the data, the data capture was has been corrupt, the kind of data itself is now corrupted, so we can't take any information from that in a kind of trustworthy manner. So I was lucky to see it, real life evidence. Yes, people definitely did die of COVID-19, and I saw some extremely kind of sad cases of some one or two younger people, but in the majority it was older people with metabolic problems and issues. And then you're kind of thinking, is it the diabetes, or is it the the COVID? And then you have to say, what is the actual condition? Because if there's such a wide kind of spectrum of illness, some people aren't affected whatsoever, some people are.
Yeah.
Obviously, the actual terrain matters. Yeah, but I was seeing it in real life. But I had this issue when I was working that there were kind of two parts. Some of my colleagues knew like it wasn't a big thing, but they still went along with the narrative.
Okay.
And then the other lot, they kind of didn't see it. They kind of thought it was very dangerous. They basically kind of parroted back to me what the news and what the
media was saying,
the hospital was saying. Yeah, as well. Yeah. So they were like masked up at all times, visors when they were seeing patients, and then in the staff room they weren't wearing any of it. So I would question, just in a nice kind of way,
friendly way.
Yeah, in a friendly way. Why do we wear masks here and not here? You know, it's not very congruent. And they would answer back just the same replies you would get off a news TV channel. So I thought it was a deeper problem than just one thing. Is that something that you think? Because you obviously saw and you had lateral thinking and a deep sense of thinking. I think that you probably might have been either born with it or have sensed it pre-pandemic. But what was it like, or is like now, having colleagues who used to think that, and are some of them waking up? Are they seeing?
100%. Yeah. All the boys in my group, a lot of them were very, very like, oh, this is serious. We've got a huge problem with this deadly virus, etc. Taking it very serious. And I'd say if there's 15 guys in our group, probably about maybe 4 or 5 have now kind of started to see it. But then obviously there's the others that are, I feel like, destined to never wake up. So it is what it is, and I don't waste my energy with those kind of people anymore. If you're not going to wake up after 3 years, then you're not going to wake up. There's no point in me wasting my time, even though I do care about you and you're my friend or you're my family. Yeah, I'm only going to try, and if you don't listen, then that's up to you. That's your destiny. That's your fate. Go and accept it. Go and see what happens. That's fine. I'm not going to worry about that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I always think people are literally dying because of these fake agents, and if there's nothing else that can wake or make you see, then me telling you,
it's not going to change anything. It's not going to change anything. You can put the facts in front of someone, but at the end of the day, it's whether they're meant to see it. Then they will eventually. You don't need to force that. If they question it, then fine. That's them questioning it. But if they're truly passionate about learning or seeing a different side of it, they would research it themselves. So it comes down to laziness and not wanting to kind of face the truth or realize that your thinking or your thinking all this time was incorrect. It comes down to ego, right? Breakdown of the ego. Once you remove ego, then you'll see the truth a lot more easily.
And I personally think, if you're especially working with people's lives, you should always have or meditate on the self, because if that becomes too strong, you lose your intelligence, because you don't think straight. You think for it and not for everything else. And this is what we see now. We've got enough evidence pre and post that masks don't work, but healthcare still insists mask wearing.
Yeah.
We're living in a paradoxical world where, maybe that's the wrong word, it's like maybe like a circus world where we have evidence, we have the Cochrane review, saying mask don't work because people really rely on that. Let's see. Real life evidence also points towards the mask don't work, but healthcare still insists on mask wearing. So there's something fundamentally wrong in healthcare, or who's leading it, or the culture. There is something wrong in all aspects of it, which I think has contributed to what's been going on over the last.
Well, I personally think it's symbolic, isn't it? It's a symbolic thing. If you're getting the public to wear a mask, it's essentially, you're covering up your freedom of speech. It's also a symbolic thing to go back in the times of slavery when slaves had to wear masks. So, I think it's more a mocking thing now, and it's symbolic more than actually having a use or having a scientific reason for anything behind it. That's all. It's mockery in my eyes, and that's what I believe.
I agree. I think if there is no scientific basis and you're wearing it because you think there's a scientific basis, but now there's enough evidence says there's no, then you have to ask, okay, why do healthcare still kind of insist? Why people still insist? And you can say a lot of people, it's become their cult, like their personality. It was introduced, I think, as a form of control and to show others who respects authority. So then it becomes like, okay, because they're wearing it, I have to wear one as well. So people become very, very kind of fearful for not wearing one.
It's sheep mentality, isn't it? Sheep mentality.
Yeah, and it really kind of induces fear and anxiety. Why do you wear yours now? As by the way,
so why I wear the mask? I'm essentially mocking the whole system and what they believe in. So when I set up my streetwear brand, which is my business that I set up in February 2021, I always had an idea to kind of create a persona behind the brand. And so I wanted to remain a mystery. If the brand does kick off, I want to have a normal life. I want to be able to walk down the street and not be recognized and live a normal life, right? I don't want fame. I don't want glory. I don't want to be notorious. So there's a couple of reasons. So, by me wearing it, I'm awake. And so if I wear this, I'm mocking them because, I know the reason why they want people to mask up. So it's essentially, I'm flipping the switch on them because they like to mock us. So I like to mock them back. And that's what it's all about. It's to do with street culture. A lot of street culture, when you see rappers and stuff, they mask up now. So it's kind of to go along with that and to create an alias and a persona. There's nothing behind it. If I was just purely, involved with, speaking the truth and putting the truth out there, I've got nothing to hide. I would take my mask off. But unfortunately, before I started coming out with the thread and stuff, I was involved with this streetwear brand, and so I was always planning to be masked up. It's nothing to do with speaking the truth. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, why does he wear a mask and stuff? Oh, he's Antifa and stuff. I'm really not. So, I know you guys want to think a load of crazy stuff, but sometimes, the answer is really simple, and you just got to ask that person or listen to what they're saying, and you'll get the truth. There's nothing to hide about. I'm a decent looking bloke as well. There's nothing to hide,
Yeah, you are.
Thank you, mate.
There's a few things that brought up. Firstly, I think we neglect fashion, music, and art in general as a form of revolution. I think only when these things begin to understand the change in the world will actually change happen.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. I've always been inspired by, for example, Banksy's art, right? How kind of, inspiring is that art, to fight for freedom and to speak your mind, etc. So yeah, I wanted to be that kind of Banksy figure behind the streetwear brand, where no one knows who I am. And only certain people will have that opportunity to understand who I am and who I am as a person. But yeah, I want to be the Banksy of the truth. That's what I want to do. So yeah, it's definitely, fashion is a very, very dark industry. I think that's coming to light. Music is a very dark industry. We saw all that stuff with the Grammys recently. You have to be blind to not see the symbolism behind that stuff and not realize how they are mocking us openly. If you can't see it, you are lost, and there's nothing we can do. But the people that do see it are very, very blessed, and we're the people that are going to evolve and take humanity forward and bring down all the evil in the world, for sure. I see that happening. So yeah, it's great. It's great that people are waking up and seeing that stuff. Fashion, yes, very dark. Balenciaga, the main kind of thing that has come out recently, where it was very obvious. I kind of knew that there was darkness in the fashion world, but I didn't kind of see it firsthand until the whole Balenciaga stuff. So me setting up a streetwear brand was kind of a bit of a fluke in a sense, because I just had a gut feeling that there was a lot of bad out there in fashion. And so I wanted to put something out that represented good and God and try and inspire the youth to come back to goodness, whereas they're lost, they're lost to this world. And it's only going to get darker and a lot more evil if people, follow everything that's out there in fashion. So putting something out there was one of my goals, and which is why I kind of thought of it in February 2021.
Nice. It's interesting, because I was thinking when you were talking about the symbolism of, kind of recent symbolism of the devil and hell, but your mask wearing, you could actually link both by saying that a lot of people nowadays value what things look like and what people look like and what they say superficially, but not what they do. So I think in a way your mask, like I always say, okay, but what has he done? Let's say you've left healthcare, you're not part of the system at the right time. You expose stuff online, and you're trying to bring some good into the world. But someone else could just see you in a mask and be like, oh, I don't really trust him. Fair, but what has he done?
Yeah, that's fine.
Right?
That's fine. Yeah, of course.
And that's the same with the symbolism. I think the symbolism, in a way, it's like it's on the same wavelength, but it's different. I think the symbolism is a way to distract and sometimes to
take the attention away from the true meaning of what is underlying.
Yes, and what they're actually doing, right? So you put the symbols and the and biblical pictures, but you're fragmenting actually that there's actually deeper, really, really dark issue that's going on in fashion. And I also do think fashion, any industry, anything we do in life, it's nothing's good or bad. It's who is the system. It's who it's run by determines whether it's good or bad. So you can have amazing fashion, very sustainable, eco-friendly, and very kind of ethical. It depends who figureheads that. And then you have other types of at the end of the day, it's just cloth, right? So it's what meaning you put behind it. And it could be a book, it could be a sword, it could be a gun. It's all down to the individual. And in a society now, I think we remove personal responsibility of the individual, because so we promote laziness and lazy thinking, and so people don't see that, and so they jump on these things like, oh my god, it's these people who are doing this to us. I believe it's individual responsibility. If you want change in fashion, for example, you will make a streetwear brand that goes against everything, so people now have a choice. Now you can buy things instead that have a good purpose and a good meaning behind it, right? So I think that's the only way, rather than just continuously blaming and then be like, oh, well, I still have to buy their clothes, right?
Exactly. There's always an alternative, and people are entitled to their opinion. If you want to look at me and see the mask and the glasses and think, I can't trust him, that's fine. It's not going to change my life, but listen to the deeper meaning behind what I'm saying, the things I say. Look at the deeper meaning behind the brand. Look at the deeper meaning behind everything that I've brought to the forefront, and maybe people can relate to that. So I'm not out here to convince people to believe in me. It doesn't matter. You can believe what you want to believe. But at the end of the day, I stand for the truth. I left the NHS because I stand for the truth. I know what I am, and that's all that matters. If we all unite. And I get that people need to doubt each other. I do understand that. But if you develop a level of spirituality, you can essentially read people's energy. You can tell if they're good people and they have a good heart. And it's about uniting together and trying to work together to bring all this down, all this system that has been set up for a number of years to kind of, control us as a population, as a species, and try and bring about change in so many different ways as well. Not just medicine, but like you say, medicine, fashion, agriculture. We can talk about a lot of things, but it's all about uniting and coming together, because as one, we're stronger than if we stick to ourselves and work as lone wolves.
What's the name of your brand?
So it's called Trillionaire Gent Squad. And so we primarily, superficially, will be seen to push street dance and UK music. But deeper, there's a whole load of subliminal meaning behind it. And the brand is very, very kind of anti-movement, anti-society, anti-government, and trying to teach the youth that there's qualities and human values in life that are really important, such as love, peace, righteousness, non-violence, and also trying to break free from the 9 to 5 and society. The generalized thinking that society has is trying to get people to think differently, and so. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. It's very early days, but we're making movements, and we're across all socials. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting journey, and see where that goes, for sure. And also, our logo is a kind of a mockery of the pyramidal side, the pyramid of society, where we're at the bottom and the elites or whoever are in control are at the top, and so the logo is a flip of that. So anyone that wears the brand who is awake, 100%, they'll be mocking, the people in charge at the moment, because we're going to be at the top soon. It's going to happen. We're going to become trillionaires. I see that happening for sure.
I want to bring up your point of spirituality, because I was having a conversation with someone who understood what was going on, and I was telling them the only real way we can make meaningful change and not become like the people that are currently suppressing us is to have a spiritual or psychological revolution individually, and therefore when we speak to each other, we rise above the language of language and of thought, and there's a deeper context, and then you're trusting someone on a deeper level, and then you can work cross culturally and internationally on different projects and in different industries, but if there's a common thread of this underlying kind of spirituality, then the world can change a lot more faster than if just one person has this and is trying to tell everyone, or working, as you said, like a lone wolf. I think, and I don't even think, I know that is the core root that needs to change, and that's why there's so much fragmentation and symbolism to get people distracted away from this underlying 100%. Thing to work together, right? Because
100%.
when we feel kind of feel the self and the ego, then we lose that thread that me and you are the same, or me and someone else are the same, and then we stop working with each other and working against each other, and then we become less powerful. But there are 7 billion of us, and we're also fearful. We're so fearful all the time that these kind of elites can do something. But pure numbers, we outdo them by 1 to so many.
I mean, billion. If we really wanted to, we could end this tomorrow, right? If we all got together and started rioting, etc. I don't believe in violence, but 100% we could be intimidating for sure if we all got together and what are the police going to do? There's only a few of us that they can potentially shoot or kill, right? At the end of the day,
I mean, this is what kind of Gandhi said, right? And what he proposed, and I've looked many others from his time. It's like non-violent movement, non-violent has come together non-violently and making change in that way. But again, it doesn't have to be protest. It could be other things. It could be art forms. That's lateral thinking. Even your fashion is a way of protesting, making people think. This platform, and I think that's more necessary now than ever. How do you feel, or how do you think people can? Because I think the most difficult thing in the whole world, in the universe, is to make someone who's unable to see see?
Yeah. So spirituality, right? Spirituality comes from the fact that a realization that God is a existing form. God is not a person. God is not someone that stays in heaven or hell. God is not someone in a form that you need to worship. God is an energy, a formless energy, and that formless energy exists inside every creation on this planet. Every single living organism has that energy running through them. So the idea that God is a separate thing is false. God is inside every single one of us. And the key thinking that people need to establish is that God lives inside your heart. And if you can recognize that, there's no chance that people will act the way they do in the world right now. Because number one, you would love each other, right? I'm not talking about the physical kind of love that people generalize with in today's age. I'm talking about pure love, right? Compassion for each other, wanting to help each other. That's the key thing, and that's the thing that needs to happen. That change needs to happen in human thinking, um, in order for the world to change. And that's not going to happen because people have so much ego, and they care about personal gain. They care about money. They care about fronting on social media, about looking good. These are not the things that are important in life. There's more to life than that. It's about helping each other and helping humanity. If we really wanted to, Doc, right? The top people in this world, they could wipe out hunger and poverty in a matter of hours, right? They could do that. They have that much wealth. Um, so it's about putting ourselves in that situation to be able to change that world, right? We shouldn't just aim to work 9 to 5 for someone else earning a meager salary, and maybe not a meager salary, maybe about 100K, which is nice. You can live comfortably, especially if you have a partner as well. You're earning a lot of money, that's fine. But what are you going to do when you leave this world? Are you going to be remembered? Absolutely not, unless you try to change the world. And so it's about striving for greatness. It's about striving to earn as much wealth as possible so that we can make that change in this world. Because we can 100% do it. If a few of us came together, I'm not saying everyone, but if we have the same number of people as the elites that do run this world, and we're as powerful as them, what's going to happen?
What makes you think that this group of new people won't become like the elites though? What stops them?
Nothing's going to stop them. If you really want to be corrupted, you can be corrupted. But at the end of the day, it's about like I say, it's about reading energy. It's about finding people that you feel have a good heart. And these are the people that I personally would help to reach that wealth, because I've done all right. I've started investing when I was really, really young. I got into stuff like crypto at a very young age. I did really well. But for me, yeah, I could go and buy a Lambo. I could buy some nice watches and stuff. And yeah, that stuff is nice for a couple of weeks. But at the end of the day, it's more than that. It's about helping humanity. It's about setting up. For me, I'm passionate about decentralized medicine. As you know, we really connected about that. I'm really passionate about bringing out the knowledge that exists in today's world about so much natural food and vegetables and minerals and spices, etc., that are there that are beneficial to us, and yet there's no one there doing it, right? So it's about trying to create that ecosystem for everyone to be able to thrive off, and doing it in a way where it can't be corrupted, because we rely too much on the pharmaceutical industry for sure. And another passion of mine is to get the truth out there, right? If we became powerful enough to buy out one of the mainstream medias and put someone decent at the top, then what's going to start happening? People are going to start hearing the truth, right? Nothing's going to stop that. So, yeah, those are my passions. There's a lot more as well, but I'd be here all day.
It's probably why when I read your thread, I felt, there's moments in life where I'm actually having it more, where it's not really you driving that initial action. It's something else just making you want to do the thing. For example, if you see an old man and he's dropped his walking stick, there's no thought. You just go and help the old man, right?
Of course.
So
Yeah.
when I looked at your thread, I was like, wow, I just need to connect with this man, because I'm trying to find like-minded individuals who have a deeper sense, who need to change the world in a deeper sense. And COVID is one aspect of it, but not the total aspect of it, because the issue of COVID-19 and the pandemic was because mankind has been corrupted kind of spiritually. So we let this happen, right? We only deserve the world that we think we actually deserve. So this is what's happened. So, and there's many other issues to deal with, like I said, fashion and ecology, forestry, food, the financial system, music, everything, right? Health. So when you saw your thread, I was like, wow, what you were saying was reflected on an intellectual level. Yes, 100%. This is what I was going through, and now I don't feel like a loner anymore. So this person has said exactly how I felt. But then second, it was like, okay, there's something. This guy actually cares, about the world. And then being with you and learning your story and your background is always have so much respect for you. And I felt it was like a blessing to have met you and to have
Thank you, brother.
Connected with you. Yeah, a real blessing. And I think that's what's kind of happened over time. We always, when we have a difficult situation in any system, we're going to have individuals who fail and people who pass. And the last kind of 3 years, there's been a group of individuals, both who've taken and not taken the jab, who whether injured or not, who now have a greater purpose. And you're kind of one of them, and it's very nice to connect with these individuals who now, because there's been this very big kind of filter, and if you don't see it and you don't really care, that's fine. That's your life and that's your journey. But now there's this opportunity where there's kind of two roads for mankind, and I say it's extinction. If we go down this route, we will be extinct. There's no other way.
I agree with that.
Or we flourish and we become even better, because there's no middle ground, right? So that's why I feel
it's all about evolution, brother. It's all about evolution.
It is, and I think it's time. We had a psychological and spiritual evolution in a global sense, and we come together and stop being fragmentary, and stop seeing people for what they look like and what they wear, and actually see what they do and who they are. But that takes a deeper level of understanding of themselves first, I think.
100%. Not everyone's going to be there. Not everyone's going to get there. That's for sure.
What's been the change? So pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, and after your thread, has your life changed in a dramatic way, or not really?
No, I mean, things are going on as usual. Nothing changes. The only thing is my Twitter following, which has gone nuts. But aside from that, my life is normal. It always will be. I'll always stay the same as I was. I always stand for the truth, and that's never going to change. So, no, it's not been the case, man. Obviously, people asking to speak to me and stuff. Yeah, for sure. That's 100% increased. People didn't want to really listen to what I had to say before, but there's a lot more individuals that I've kind of come across who have the same mindset as me, which is really nice, as you say. One of them is obviously you, brother. Your knowledge, I feel, is out of this world. The knowledge that you have, and I want to, if I can do anything to help you bring out that knowledge, then I'm going to strive to do that, man. I'll do everything I can to support you. So it's been a blessing as well to meet you and come across you, and to also have you, understand that I am speaking the truth, and to feel that as well. Because, as you say, a lot of people have their doubts, and that's fine. That's totally fine. It's not meant to be the case that we're meant to connect, and I'm at peace with that. But for me to meet someone like you, huge blessing in life, and I know we're both destined for greatness, mate. There's no doubt about
that. I say we are great. I think being here right now and being alive is a miracle, because it's all we have, right? All we have is right now at the moment, this conversation, me and you, and we can enjoy this infiniteness of life at this moment, and how blessed can everyone who's died say we are now. It's the most kind of precious thing in the world to have life, and that's why, for me, with this one opportunity that you have to make everyone else's life better. You have to improve not everyone else, every other thing needs to vibrate on the same level, because
Yeah,
there's
it's
no,
a
for
higher
me, there's no
power
other way.
after us. It's a higher power, and so we're only doing what that higher power wants us to do.
Mm.
So whatever is going to happen is going to happen. There's no power on this planet that can stop it from happening. So it's just about enjoying the show, sitting back, grabbing that popcorn, doing some good work, and enjoying life. It's not about being serious. And I see so many podcasts that are like, super serious. Oh, the world is doomed. What are we gonna do? Just relax. Life is a game. Enjoy it. Be a good person. Try and help others, and enjoy the show. Because it is going to be a bloody damn well good show. I'll tell you that. And bro, my battery's on 10, so I do apologize if I cut off. But yeah, we're happy to keep talking. That's not a problem.
So we'll cut off in 6 minutes, so that'll make it 1 hour. Hopefully, your battery will last that long.
Yeah.
But I mean, thanks for letting me know. I think, yeah, I mean, to end it, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. When there's a lot of fear mongering on, hopefully not purposefully, from both sides, right? We had it with the COVID pandemic, but now we have it with we have the new.
We have it from within, which is the most ridiculous thing.
Within, yeah,
that's absolutely ridiculous.
We have it with the vaccine injury. We have it with the new coins that the kind of government are going to bring out. We have it with WEF and the WEF, and people are constantly posting the same fearful commentary. And I always go, the world is shaped by you, and therefore, if you're fearful, then the world will become fearful, and love cannot exist.
You're projecting that energy out into the world, isn't it? That's
exactly.
And love. What do you think is going to happen?
Love can't exist if there's fear. So I always have to check myself and go, is this love or fear? If it's fear, I go, and I've actually ended most of my fear. I go, okay, then it's not right, and we have to mitigate it, do something about it, so we're not fearful of it, and then it's all good. And I think if we constantly live in a kind of state of stress, only stress will be formed. And that's another reason why I really connect with you, because you have that energy where you go, okay, yeah, bad things happening, it's there, we need to deal with it, but we don't have to fear it. Exactly. There's a difference there. Is there anything that you want to end? Go on.
Have you had any death threats, by the way? Which is, I find it quite funny.
I never had death threats. I used to have comments like, "Are you a real doctor?" and never death threats. No.
Okay.
Why? Was it you? I mean, I don't know if you've had any.
Well, no, I got my first one a couple of weeks ago, which I find quite funny. Because at the end of the day, I'm prepared to leave my job, and speak the truth. I'm not scared of death. So these people hiding behind their computers on their keyboards, talking about death threats. There's levels to the game, right? If you want to come down. I've got a 29-inch samurai sword waiting. I'll go down.
That's a joke. That's a joke, everyone.
Yeah, that's a joke. That's a joke. But yeah, feel free to come down. It's all good. I'll die fighting, and that's the way I'll always live. So, yeah, keep on coming. It's all good. It's all fun and games. But yeah, I never take it serious. I just laugh at that stuff. It's all people trying to scare each other. But
it's a shame. It's a shame that people have to say that, because it's a projection of them being uncomfortable with the truth that's in them.
Yeah, so it's insecurities and it's fair. That's all it is.
It's a big shame, because it engulfs you, that emotion, and you become that fear. So you need to let that go, and only when that happens can we work together and make a meaningful change. No, I haven't. Maybe I'll get one tomorrow now, but you know what I mean. But even then, I see threats differently. I see it more. If you have nothing to hide from and you live in alignment, then everything else that's bad happening to you is an externalization of that person. If you did something wrong and someone tells you off, then it's you, right? But I try to live as aligned as I can with what I have. And if someone tells me kind of threatening or harsh or bad, and I go, okay, did I do something bad? No, and then I go, okay, I think it's a you problem. But yeah, I'm really sorry you had to face that.
No,
And
it's all good, bro. It's all good.
yeah.
Just intrigued to see what others are coming across as well.
All right, I think we should end it here. But it's
No
been
problem, brother.
lovely to speak to you, and hopefully we
Likewise,
do
bro.
another one soon. There's lots to talk about. We didn't. I
Always.
mean, we touched about a few things on a few things, and I think even the things we did touch, you could write 4 or 5 kind of theses on them. So I think it goes very deep. But thank you very much for coming on the podcast, and thank you very much for being part of my life as well.
No worries, brother.
It's been
Likewise.
very kind of blessed to have you. Thank you.
God bless, bro. Speak soon.